guys, Steve here. I wanted to tell you about today's sponsor, Nux. It's Nux 3-in-1 Refresher Spray. It's a moisture-absorbing spray that's designed specifically for men, especially the undercarriage guys. I mean, on a summer day, if you've ever been out and about, you get all sweaty and sticky, but you don't have time to take a shower, this is the answer. I'm sure you've had that experience, guys, and it sucks. So I want to tell you, this is a game changer. You can use it on your armpits. You can put it on clothing, sports pads, pretty much anything that collects moisture. They actually design this stuff for military applications. So tactical gear, anything that you don't want sticky and you don't want to stink. So visit mynux.com. And, I want to let you know that it has no aluminum ingredients. It's tested to be safe and effective, and it comes in scented or unscented varieties. So, again, that's mynux.com. That's myKnucks.com.
All right, guys, this broadcast is brought to you by Boss to Boss Productions, Intrinsic Marketing, Hodgepodge, and Nux 3-in-1 Refresher Spray. It's hard to do the drum. It's hard to do the drum roll with on a solo one. But as you guys can see through the video, I got my man. Welcome again, guys, to another Mack and Black. As you guys can see, I am solo here in the studio, but we got my man Nick out in a remote location right now. I don't want to give.
See if I can make myself. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to see if I can make myself bigger on the screen.
My man, what's going on, Nick? What's good? Tell me about it.
Well, right now I'm out in Gurney at Six Flags. I'm out on a company trip, but the show had to go on. I wasn't gonna miss it, and everyone's gonna be looking at me weird as they walk back and forth, wonder why this guy's talking into his phone.
Well, that's okay. We'll give him something to talk about, man. So Nick, it's only been a week. I mean, it feels like every single week feels like almost like a month between our shows because of just time, between getting to our next show, but also with all the news that happens as NBA free agency now is really kicking into gear. We are starting to see some things move around here today, including Kyrie Irving making his decision. Looks like he's going to be heading to Brooklyn on a 4-year deal. They're going to be finalizing that hopefully tomorrow night. And then also Kemba Walker is now a lock for Boston, another 4-year deal. But tell me, we were talking about this off air, Nick, but tell me about the situation right now with Durant and Leonard, because I did read that article, and I see that there is some steam behind them right now. What's going on with KD and Kawhi?
Well, I got multiple reports came to my phone earlier today that Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard have thought about teaming up, and the only two teams that they're considering trying to team up with have been the Knicks and the Clippers. So, there's been a lot of speculation about the Lakers potentially bringing in Kawhi after they were able to free up some cap space so they can get another max contract. But I couldn't see Kawhi Leonard really being a guy that would leave Toronto to join another super team. To
be a second fiddle, too.
LeBron James.
Yeah, and I was just saying to be a second fiddle too to KD. That's kind of that's like taking a step back almost.
You would think so, but you know what? I mean, again, everyone wants to try and downplay the fact of the success of New York and what they've been through over the amount of years. I feel like this is a different regime and there's a different culture going on in New York because. If Scott Perry, here's the thing: you gotta look at it like this. Anthony Davis was potentially going to become, Carmelo 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks were going to trade a lot of pieces. They're going to trade their future. The same thing they did when they traded Carmelo. But you could tell James Dolan had his hand in the Melo deal back in 2011 when that went down, but you could tell that it could have happened again. And it looks like James Dolan fully is letting Scott Perry and Steve Mills run the team. It sounds like James Dolan's just writing the checks. So if you're going to tell me, and think about it like this, there was another report saying that Kevin Durant, it was going to talk to the Knicks in a private meeting in Los Angeles. So there's got to be some steam, because all the reports that I'm reading, even though Kyrie's potentially going to Brooklyn, which then can lead to D'Angelo Russell being cut, it doesn't sound like KD is really sold on the Brooklyn Nets.
No,
not as much as maybe as Kyrie is. I think in Brooklyn, Kyrie can be the man. I think in Kevin Durant's eyes, he's looking, it's like, okay, Brooklyn has some good pieces. Yes, they made the playoffs. But, even though this Knicks team only won, 17 games last year, and, but I'm looking at their pieces, and I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson, who could be good. I'm looking at Kevin Knox, that can be good. I'm looking at Dennis Smith Jr., that can be good. I'm looking at R.J. Barrett, that is happy to be in New York.
Yeah.
And if somehow if Perry and Mills can somehow convince Kawhi to really leave Toronto and not move out west and come east, and we all heard the speculation that Kevin Durant sold his house out west and bought a house in New York, I think this meeting means everything, and I think James Dolan needs to stay out of it.
Yeah.
And I think if Dolan stays out of it, and the only people that's making the pitch is Mills, Perry, and even Coach Fizdale, I think the Knicks can land Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and you know what, Nick?
And let me say this too.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Let me say this too. If I'm the Knicks, even though that Kevin Durant is down, you got to make that contract fully guaranteed. No nonsense. I know it's going to be a risque move,
right?
But you got for the stars on this one. And if you can convince KD, I think they convince Kawhi, and that really opens up what can happen to the Knicks in the future.
Yeah, and that's a good point on the guaranteed thing, because there could be some, lack of a better term, fuckery with that, where it's like, well, we don't want to give him the full, it's like, nah, just give the man his money, pay him, he'll be back. And if he's not back, hey, you took a risk, you took a gamble for one of the best players in the world and one of the best players in NBA history. I'll tell you why there's steam behind what you're saying, Nick, because I just read another report that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green are all heading to New York to try and talk to Kevin Durant. Now, that is a weird conversation to have, because as we talked about in previous shows, and what ended up kind of, I guess, what you can say, I guess, manifesting, is Klay Thompson decided he wants to come back, and there's no reason to go to another team right now, especially after the injury that he had. So they're going to offer him a 5-year max, and in his mind, I don't see him thinking about going anywhere else at that point. But yeah, there's some steam behind what you're talking about right now, Nick, because clearly Kevin has looked at New York for a long time, and he's been coveting that thought process of, man, we can go over to New York and to the Mecca and do some great things. So and again, nothing shows that that's legitimate more than his old team trying to make a trip out there. So man, let me ask you here, Nick, when it comes to the Knicks, obviously they're gonna have no Kevin Durant next year, even if they do sign him, right? You're not going to have the guy for the whole year. And you think you can convince a guy like maybe Kawhi to come and hold down the team for a year and hopefully keep him on his back like he did with Toronto at some points this year? Or would you rather just kind of go out and explore another option or two with the money that you have?
Well, what I'm thinking is there's a lot of ties. I don't even want to say ties, but I think there might be some good interest between the Knicks and Julius Randle. They're going to technically need a 4 just in case if things don't happen. But think about it. Think about the domino effect that could happen here if one, if not both guys end up signing in New York. Obviously you're going to give them the 2 max contracts, but you're still going to have some money to spend, to try and get those bench players, something like that. So what I'm thinking is that again, you get KD, you get Kawhi, you bring those guys in, New York's already going to be going insane.
Yeah.
Like, first off, if the Knicks, because the president Steve Mills and our GM Scott Perry.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is that if Scott Perry can really convince Kawhi to leave Toronto, come into an interdivision rival, and leave a team that you just won a title with,
right?
That's almost borderline executive GM of the year right there.
Yeah.
But I think the Knicks have all their eggs in one basket, and they're going to go for broke here.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, that's going to dispel this sort of aura around New York where they can sign free agents and nobody wants to go to New York and nobody wants to play with the Knicks. And I think that's a real foolproof way of saying, nah, that's BS. If you can get Kevin Durant to come there, I think you can get anybody to come there. So that's a good point. And you know what? On top of that, Nick, I will say this, man. The Knicks are in a good position only because there's so much shuffling going on in the East, and Boston now is trying to make this push for Kemba, and now obviously the Nets are closely, it seems like it's a done deal at this point. You've got some other sort of whisperings that Kawhi and KD are pretty serious about this want to play together. But man, Nick, I don't know if you've seen this, but I saw like 15 separate reports about Jimmy Butler wants to play with Kawhi Leonard, but he also wants to play with LeBron James, and Kemba would like to play with Kyrie. It's like all of these reports are flooding in, and you don't know what's legitimate and what's not, to be quite honest, because some of them just sound like it's teams trying to almost confuse other teams. So it's hard to say right now. It's hard to say right now who's going where. Obviously, it's still pretty early, but things are going to kick off tomorrow, and we might see some things that we weren't expecting, especially when it comes to Kawhi, because he's been playing coy about this, and you never know, man. I think the big thing right now is the Lakers, and I did want to get your opinion on the Lakers because we didn't talk about them a lot last week, other than talking about some of the cap things, some of the cap problems that they may have. They now got rid of those cap issues. They've gotten rid of the players on the roster now that would hold them back from having another max player, and then now they have that max slot ready to go. What do you think, Nick? Can you think the Lakers can sell Kawhi? Do you think the Lakers can sell? I know that I did see some stuff about Jimmy Butler. I mean, that's not too big of a thing, but Kawhi specifically, do you think the Lakers can convince Kawhi to come out to the Lakers?
I mean, we've heard the reports, that Stephen A. Smith said not too long ago that he thought that Kawhi was seriously considering LA. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, for some reason, I don't know why, I don't like that idea of Kawhi leaving Toronto. You just won a championship. I can see if there's two things I don't understand. First off, I don't understand why everyone's so hard pressed to go to the West. Right. Why don't people stay in the East? If the East is quote unquote so weak, everyone wants to go to the West. You got obviously, you got LeBron James, and you have AD now in LA. Mm-hmm. You have, what's going on in Golden State. Even though we talk about Klay Thompson's probably going to miss the entire year with the ACL injury, there's still a dangerous threat. So I'm just confused, and I really do think that there's some kind of it's the gnats in my face again. Some kind of look to where, why not go east? I think Ice Cube said it best. When there was all that speculation of Kyrie and KD going to Brooklyn, he was like, no, that doesn't make sense. If you're trying to build a legacy and you're trying to make people really believe of you maybe being better than LeBron, then go to New York. Right. Brooklyn are the little brothers, and I kind of feel the same way with the Los Angeles Clippers. How can you really sell to certain free agents? Yeah, you got the bread, but how can you really sell that we're better than Big Brother? It's the same thing kind of with the Mets and the Yankees per se. Are you really trying to go, if the Mets gave you $100 million and the Yankees gave you $100 million, but you know you have a better chance of winning with the Yankees, then why would you go with the Mets?
Right.
And there are certain teams that would do that. They would just go to the New York Mets. And I feel the same way with LA, and I think Ice Cube is right. I think just the prestige and whatnot is in New York, to go to New York. But I mean, Kawhi going to the Lakers, I'm not necessarily feeling it. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just not feeling it. I think it would be a cheap way out. And I just don't feel that Kawhi Leonard's demeanor would be that. Now, if they went and played for the Clippers, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The Clippers are a good young team. And them, let's say if they do the KD and Kawhi package, it'll be the Clippers versus Lakers is going to be a good showdown.
Yeah.
You know, LeBron and AD versus Kawhi and KD when KD gets healthy. But I just think that the buzz is just New York. And I think, you know, what I would also do is, first of all, I saw a picture of KD hanging out with Charles Oakley. Now, I don't know how much that would help with the beef that is between Charles and James Dolan.
Yeah.
But I think, again, if Charles Oakley does the right thing and sells the Knicks minus James Dolan, I think you could get in Kevin Durant's ear and convince him, hey, New York's not that bad of a place. You know, there's a lot of good things going on here.
Yeah.
But I'm not feeling the whole Kawhi to the Los Angeles Lakers. So then we could see another super team.
Yeah.
And then that would almost make KD want to stay. And then it's just the whole West, you know, it's just West. And then everyone's making fun of the East again. And that's not what the NBA about. The NBA's there's got to be some kind of balance.
Yeah.
And I think there would be the balance lost if Kawhi ended up going to Los Angeles.
It would certainly
play for the Lakers.
Yeah, and it would certainly lose the parity that we were talking about last week 1,000 times. We're like, oh my God, the parity's back, and you know the team isn't, you know, the league isn't handcuffed. But the reason why I ask you that, Nick, is because for all intents and purposes, if Kawhi gets convinced to leave LA or to leave for LA for the Lakers, I think that makes Kevin more inclined to stay with the Warriors, like you said. And that's a real issue for the Knicks right now, where it's like, man, if the Lakers go out and get the super team, that may make Kevin feel more almost inclined to sign with the Warriors. You know, listen, Nick, the league is wide open right now, and that has something to do with the injuries to Clay and to Kevin. Even if Clay and Kevin both come back to the Warriors next year, we're still looking at a team that's going to be without two of its best players for the whole year. Clay, I think, is saying, oh, he could come back for the playoffs next year, and that wouldn't be a problem. We'll see. It's a long road ahead, man. It's a year of rehab for both of these guys. And that's easy to forget in this certain circumstance, because it sounds sexy to say, yeah, they're going to stay and go, duke it out with the Lakers. I think there's a logistical issue with the whole Kawhi to the Lakers thing. You know, can Kawhi coexist with on the floor? I'm not saying off the floor. On the floor with AD and LeBron. You're going to technically have Kawhi, you're going to have to play him at the 2. You're going to have to play LeBron at the 4. This is like not really making a lot of logistical sense quite yet, because you're still looking at a team, even if they bring in Kawhi, they're going to have to play a different style of basketball than they were planning, I think. So I will say this, Nick. Everything that I'm seeing right now on Twitter, and even Shams Charania, who's my guy when it comes to the NBA, has come out and said that Lakers brass are already bragging that they've got Kawhi, that they've already come out and talked to a few of their quote-unquote sources, or quote-unquote, their, whoever they're kind of using in the media, and told them we've got Kawhi in the bag. So that's a problem for the Knicks, man. And I'll tell you, not because they wanted to go after Kawhi in the first place, just because now that sort of it may complicate things. But if you're still able to acquire KD, man, that East is going to be so wide open next year. I mean, we don't know who's going to be who quite yet. There's so much shuffling going on in the East, and there's talks of Derrick Rose going to the Pistons. There's talks of, I did see that Enes Kanter and a couple of other has interest with Bulls and a couple other teams. D'Angelo Russell right now is a guy that's in limbo because now with Kyrie, a lot of people are saying Kyrie is going to sign with Brooklyn tomorrow. They would have to renounce their rights to D'Angelo, making him an unrestricted free agent, making him basically able to go anywhere he wants. He's talking between Minnesota. He's talking between the Lakers. I know that there's also talks about him going to the Clippers. Man, there's a lot of shuffling going around, and I don't know exactly where it's going to go quite yet.
Yeah, no, dude, I hear you on that. There's also some talks about potentially him going to New York as well, that the Knicks might be interested in D'Angelo Russell as well, because remember,
more point guards.
Yeah, well, think about it like this: they just let Moutier go.
Okay.
And they're still talking about trading Frank Ntilikina, but it's been tough because nobody wants Frank.
Yeah.
So I think here's the thing. On paper, it would look like a catastrophic loss for the Knicks. But I think that this regime has prepared for the inevitable, which is why I was always saying that, with a lot of these guys, a lot of Knicks fans being upset that we didn't get the number 1 pick, but we got the number 3 pick, and we got a guy that wants to be in New York, who's happy to be in New York, who's ready to shine for the Knicks. So I don't really think that there's too much, like a catastrophic error or, some loss if the Knicks aren't able to get any other stars other than, the guys that they got. Because now at this point, because the way I think Mills and Perry are thinking about it is, maybe I will start saying that. So I have to say
Pills and Mary, yeah.
Just call him Pills. So the way that I think that Pills has it is they're like, okay, we know KD got hurt. We know that we can go all in for Kawhi, but we're not sure where it's going to go. But if we don't land it, we're not going to get desperate. We're going to run with the young kids, and we'll build through the draft. So it's either plan A, go all in, and if you strike out, then plan B is to play with the kids. So they have a plan in place on what they want to do. And I think if they sign anybody, no one's getting a max deal from the Knicks. So it's not like, remember when what was it, like T-Mac and Tracy McGrady, T-Mac and Tim Duncan and Grant Hill were all free agents, and the Bulls struck out on all of them, and they tried to give Tim Thomas this stupid max deal, and he ended up sending a max deal with Milwaukee. The Knicks aren't doing that. This is a new regime, and they're not going to panic because they didn't land any major stars.
Yeah, and that's big, man, because we talked about that last week. It gets easy to overthink this shit, man. Like to say, man, we lost KD, time to go out and make another splash. No, you can still piece together this team. I think you hit it on the head, man. It's really important, especially in this day and age, to just move on and say, you know what? Call spade a spade. We missed that one. Let's move on and try and move towards a little bit more progress on the team and the personnel. And again, with all the shuffling, I mean, the West right now could be looking, to be even stronger. I mean, the Jimmy Butler rumors right now are that he is motivated to go to Houston, and the Sixers, quite frankly, are motivated to get something back for him, meaning they would try and attempt a sign-in trade. I'm not exactly sure what the Sixers are going to do with PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon and Clint Capella. Unless they're maybe thinking of routing them to another team for more assets. But the Sixers look like they're going to be right now in limbo. There's no guarantee that they'll get Tobias. There's no guarantee that it looks unlikely they're going to get Jimmy. Boston obviously now has to take a chance with this whole Kemba experiment if they're able to get Kemba. We talked about what happened with Brooklyn and their kind of thought process is they want to bring in Kyrie, and quite frankly, man, if I'm Kyrie, I probably would call Jimmy Butler and say, hey, come out to Brooklyn, because you're going to go out to Houston. Houston's going to have to deal with with the Lakers and the Warriors and, you know, the Nuggets and the Blazers. Come out to the East, man, and let's run this thing over here because, dude, the East is wide open. As a Bulls fan, I got to say, Nick, as a Bulls fan, I have to feel nothing but optimistic right now because you're looking at a wide open conference with a wide open division, and we've got a little bit of money to play with, and we're not going to be able to sign anyone to a max, but we're going to be able to bring in a guy or two that may help the team. I think we had a decent draft, and I think the Knicks have to kind of look in the same light. Like, even if they say, well, you know, we lost the Durant sweepstakes and Kawhi didn't want to come here and yada, yada, yada. I like your plan for that, man. Like, go out and bring in a Julius Randle and go out and try and convince D'Angelo Russell. These are all things that you have to do because teams, man, they've got to take chances in the East this year. They can't be thinking about playing it safe or saying, oh, you know, let's try and run another, you know, year and see how it goes. No, man, this has got to be it's got to be something where we're looking at a all-in type of thought process for some of these teams. And I think we'll see that, honestly. I think the East now, there's a couple teams with money to play with. I know that a lot of the free agency stuff is not going to happen until our next show. But, man, I'm telling you, by tomorrow, a lot of this stuff is going to be, like, put in paper, and we're going to start to see some movement. So, yeah, that'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah, no, most def. And, you know, I mean, there's definitely a lot of Lakers fans that are hoping. But, you know, if I'm a Laker fan, like, I would have to ask myself this question. Do I really want to bring in Kawhi Leonard, but now I don't have no bench?
Right.
Like, that's one thing that really killed Golden State this year is the fact they didn't have a bench.
Yeah.
So, you know, you pretty much you got the super team. Okay, you got Steph, you got Clay, you got, you know, Draymond for what it's worth, and you got KD, but KD goes down, Clay goes down, and when it was time for your bench to step up, they couldn't compete with Toronto's bench. So I think with the money that you already got the prize you wanted. They wanted Anthony Davis. They wanted Anthony Davis going back to last year.
Yeah.
So you got your guy and you got LeBron. So you got your two main pieces. So you need to, because think about it like this: when the Los Angeles Lakers was winning the title with Kobe and Shaq, it wasn't Kobe, Shaq, and then some third guy. It was a bunch of role players. You know, Robert Horry was your three guy, and Rick Fox was your defense guy. You
Derek
know, and
Fisher.
then you know you had Ron Harper I think was running the point for.
Yeah,
for
Derek Fisher was there for a long time. Yeah,
Derek Fisher was your six-man guy. So I think that's important for Los Angeles to not do the LeBron super team thing and maybe use those pieces to maybe convince D'Angelo Russell to come back.
I agree.
You can think about it like this. D'Angelo only really left LA because he was traded under Magic Johnson because of the whole tattletaling thing.
Yep.
But the man's got talent and just led a bunch of no-name players from the Brooklyn Nets to the 6th seed in the East.
That's true.
So this kid's got talent.
Yeah.
So I'd rather the Lakers spend money on that and bring in pieces that would make sense to the team. That if that even means to bring back another Julius Randle back.
Yeah.
You don't think about that. AD at the 5, you put Julius at the 4 with LeBron at the 3. That's a dangerous front court. So I think, you know, as exciting as it might be to get the triple threat, you might be better off sticking with the pieces you got and try and build around it.
I agree, man. I mean, if I'm a Lakers fan and you give me the choice of Kawhi or D'Angelo and like JJ Redick, I'm taking JJ Redick and D'Angelo over Kawhi. That's not to say that they're better. That's just to say that the team, if you're asking me about the starting lineup of D'Angelo, JJ Redick, LeBron, Kuzma, and AD, that's a pretty damn dangerous team and not as top-heavy as we thought it would be. And you probably won't have to spend a max on D'Angelo, too.
And think about it like this, too. You got to remember that the Warriors are technically 2 players down.
Right.
So West is technically as wide open as the East is when you got 2 guys from a team that has you know, damn near built a dynasty.
Right.
You know, they're both gone. Well, I mean, injury-wise, they're both going to be gone. So I think the NBA just as a whole with the East and the West is wide open with those two injuries. But I will say this. I think that if the Houston Rockets make that trade, it'd be the dumbest trade I've ever heard of in my life. Yeah. So you're going to trade 3 depth pieces because you want Jimmy Butler? Like, you could not have lost to the Golden State Warriors that bad that you're in a state of desperation to make dumbass moves. Like, you know, a la New York in the early 2000s or so. You know, the Isaiah Thomas era. That's an Isaiah Thomas move. You can't make that move. They cannot make that move. I think it would be the most utter mistake the Houston Rockets would make, because it's not going to make them any better. No. Just like Skip Bayless said something the other day that I thought was interesting. Even though you have LeBron and even though you have AD, and if Kawhi was to go to Los Angeles, who's your closer? Because don't get me wrong, yeah, you know, Kawhi Leonard, you know, he's a great player. You know, people are putting him in the top 5. But outside of that shot that he hit against Philly to get them into the Eastern Conference Finals, he's made no clutch shots. Yeah. Like Kawhi Leonard in the fourth quarter in a few of these games had to get bailed out by Fred VanVleet or Siakam or even Marcus Gasol hit some big threes in a couple of those fourth quarters. Yeah. And I kind of agree with him because LeBron James has been known to really not hit big shots. AD has never been in a position to hit big shots. And Kawhi Leonard really wasn't that good in hitting big shots. People are gonna say, "Oh, well, he won a championship." Okay, well, let's kind of X out the championship part. I'm just talking about what big shots did he make. Yeah, he went on a 10-0 run. So let's take game. What was that? Was that game 5?
Yeah.
Or let's take game 5 for instance. The man goes on a 10-0 run, and then dumbass Kyle Lowry calls a timeout.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard in the room after that timeout went like 1 for 7 when he got guarded by what's his name, Klay Thompson.
Yeah,
that's not clutch. That is not clutch. So that's why I'm saying that I think it's important for LA. I think it's important for Los Angeles to get them pieces that surround LeBron and AD, since those are your 2 blue chips, and not deplete your team because you know you have the money to get another max slot. But you got to sign, like you said, you got to do what's best for LA and not just sign names because it's going to put tickets in the seats. Right. It's not like Lakers fans aren't coming out to watch these games anyway.
No, they're going to show up either way, man, and that's a great point. I mean, I honestly feel the same about Houston. I think that's dumb. It's not like Jimmy Butler was the missing piece to beat the Warriors or anything like that. You know, that's crazy. That's crazy to say. So, you know, to me,
but think about it like this.
Yeah.
Houston has been in desperation mode ever since they lost to Golden State.
Blew that lead, yeah.
You know, they blow the lead, but then all of a sudden it's Chris Paul and James Harden can't get along, and then they wanted to trade Chris Paul to the Knicks, and you knew the deal had to be dumb as hell for them to reject it. That there have been no reports on what exactly was included in the deal.
Yeah.
You just know that the Knicks said no. So that lets me know they did 2 things. A, they didn't take on Chris Paul's contract because I'm pretty sure they wanted it. And B, I'm pretty sure that the Rockets wanted that 3rd pick, and the Knicks said Isaiah Thomas does not exist here. We're not making that deal.
Yeah, he's with the Mystics now.
So Houston has been in this desperation, and you know, one of my favorite lines that I've been saying, you know, between this show and between the Bear Cave and just on Facebook is just staying the course. And the Knicks right now are staying in their game plans. It's either game plan A, we're going to bring in Kawhi and KD now, or it's game plan B, we're just going to stay the course. We'll let the kids run out. You know, I'm sure they feel that David Fizdale is good enough of a coach where they're not going to win 17 games next year. If the Knicks won anywhere between 30 and 40 games, I'm going to chalk this season up as a win, because now you're seeing progress. You know what I'm saying? And also, let's not forget that technically they haven't re-signed AD yet, LA, even though it's probably going to happen. But then remember that the Knicks supposedly were in AD's ear saying, before you sign that extension, take a look at what we're doing. We're probably going to have some free money next year.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you might want to still come to New York. So maybe AD might weigh his options. Again, who knows? But Houston's desperate when they don't need to be desperate. when you know that the team you can't beat is missing 2 of its stars.
Yeah, I agree. They should be thinking about trying to flip Chris Paul for some cap space, honestly, because
But the thing is, nobody wants.
No one's
Chris
going to
Paul.
take that contract.
Nobody, okay, yeah, the contract is flipping terrible.
Yeah, it's like 30 plus million for the next 3 years. Yeah.
Right. So no one. You're going to have to at least eat $20 million of that if you're going to want to try and trade Chris Paul, which the Rockets aren't going to do.
Right.
And B, this isn't the same Chris Paul that was in LA and New Orleans.
No.
It's not the same guy. It's not a guy that we were talking about, who was the better point guard between him and Darren Williams.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Lob City Chris Paul. We're talking about the Chris Paul who had Golden State on the ropes last year and his hamstring went out.
Right.
We're talking about the same Chris Paul I think was hurt in one of the games this year. Chris Paul is an injury case who's making $30 million. There's not a team alive in the NBA that's going to eat that contract.
No.
So if you're not meeting anybody at halfway, no one's going to eat that contract. So they're stuck with him. They're stuck with him, and they're stuck with James Harden. And like you said, trading for what's his name for Jimmy Butler is not the end all be all piece that would send the Houston Rockets, to the next level, because they're just going to continue to suck, and then Jimmy's going to cry and bitch, and it's just going to be a total mess in Houston.
Yeah, and you know what? I love Jimmy. I think he's he's a last of a dying breed when it comes to personality in the NBA, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to hold his tongue if he gets to Houston and he's watching, this team that, again, D'Antoni, man, the jury's still out on that guy, man. A lot of people in the NBA circle want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt because of what he did with Phoenix or whatever it may be. Dude, this guy is not like somebody that I'm thinking, yeah, I want this guy running my team. I'm enthusiastic about this guy running my team. There's no chance that I think Jimmy Butler comes in and is like all of a sudden the answer for them. They have 2 or 3 players that combine to be Jimmy Butler. They've got Eric Gordon, they've got PJ Tucker, and they've got another couple of guys that can kind of pitch in what Jimmy would pitch in. And I just don't necessarily think that's smart, honestly. I personally see Jimmy teaming up with Kyrie in Brooklyn. I said this a couple of shows ago. I think Kyrie and Jimmy are closer than people think, and I think Kyrie and Jimmy want to play together. And we talked about this actually back when the Bulls were still had Jimmy, where Jimmy was talking about, well, he when he becomes a free agent, he's going to want to go somewhere with Kyrie and da 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 da. So man, this is interesting when it comes to NBA free agency. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of things that are right now set in stone, but there's a lot of moves that are looking like they're getting closer, and we'll see how it happens, because the power structure right now for the NBA has dramatically shifted. We went from a team or a league rather that was really top heavy with the Warriors, and again we talked about everybody sort of rallying around that thought process that you need 3 stars to go out there and do things. So we'll see, but I know that when it comes down to it, guys like Kevin Durant is going to be the gauge. What he does is going to determine how a lot of people make their moves and how a lot of teams make their moves. So that might be the first domino piece to fall. We'll have to see where it goes from there, because at the same time right now, people forget right now that KD is a great player and everything like that, but that Achilles injury is tough to come back from, man. It is not a guarantee that this guy's going to come back and be the type of player we're used to seeing him be. So it's going to be interesting to see how he thinks about his decision here. I'm a little distracted because I'm watching UFC on the side here. There's a UFC fight night going on ESPN, guys. Right now we've got.
Is that Ngannou?
It is Ngannou and Dos Santos. So that should be a good one, man. It's gonna be a slobber knocker. I'm hoping that I can make that one by the time I get home.
Not to jump off topic because it's happening, but hasn't Junior Dos Santos won his last 2-3 fights?
He has. Yeah, he's He's recovered
And
really
no
well.
offense, yeah, and no offense, but I know it's been a little while since DC has fought, and it was all the hype about him and Brock, but Brock's for the UFC for the WWE.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking a 4-fight win streak and a former UFC heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
I mean, give Dos Santos his due if he goes against Ngannou, because like that fight's interesting to as far as the picture goes for the UFC heavyweight division, because I know that Stipe wants his rematch, and I'm pretty sure Ngannou wants another shot at the heavyweight title.
Yeah.
But with Ngannou, how better is his cardio?
Right.
Because that's what killed him against Stipe. Once he got to that middle of the second round, Francis had no cardio. He was out. He was tired, and Stipe just out-wrestled him for pretty much the remainder of that fight.
Yeah.
And Francis had no shot because, Francis reminded me, it's a lot of, remember Shane Carwin. Shane Carwin's, a lot of his fights were all over in the first round. And we had no idea on how good he was, after the first round. But remember when in that fight against Brock, when they went to the second round, he had no cardio. Right. And Brock choked him out in like 2 minutes of the second round. So that's why I think if that's the biggest thing I'm looking at that main event tonight, did Francis's cardio get better to beat Junior? If he does he get the next shot against DC? And then if Junior ends up winning tonight, does Dana White give him another shot at the UFC? I know Junior's older, but if he still got the juice to become world heavyweight champion, the world champion, the heavyweight champion of the UFC, then you got to give the man a shot, because you gave Randy Couture, old ass Randy Couture, a shot, and he did put asses in seats and did a pretty damn good job of defending the title before he ran into Brock Lesnar. And then for what it's worth, he actually wrestled Brock Lesnar really good until he just took one to the face and could never recover from it. And Brock, like a shark smelling blood in the water, just ended the fight. So, I mean, he didn't look good in that fight. So, I mean, but Junior deserves another deal.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's why I really love this matchup tonight, man, because you got two guys that are sort of in the same tier now, where Ngannou, man, he came out 3 or 4 fights ago, and I think people thought this guy would probably be the best heavyweight of all time. He was like knocking dudes' heads off their shoulders, and everyone, like the knockout against frickin' Overeem was like, he damn near took Overeem's head off with that. But then he comes out against Stipe, very underwhelming performance against Stipe, very underwhelming performance against Derek Lewis, and then everybody started looking at this dude differently. Like, he's the same guy physically. Is he all there mentally right now? Is his motor this? And to your point, his cardio and his motor at the place where it needs to be, where he's a top level performer. And listen, credit to Junior Dos Santos, man. I want to say he missed time because of a PED or some sort of like tainted substance, and he missed a year. And dude, for a dude who's in his 30s in a heavyweight division, that's a freaking hard sort of roadblock to overcome when you missed a year that doesn't have anything to do with injury, but because the damn league wants to, give you shit because one of the supplements that you had a trace amount something banned. So, man, Nick, tell me about that heat right now. I'm so happy I'm inside. I'm inside and I'm a little bit hot. Tell me about that heat right now.
You know what? I'm kind of underneath trees right now. The sun's not as hot now as it was maybe at around 11:30, 12.
Yeah.
It's been died down, but I mean, it's still a little, I don't want to say muggy, but I mean, it's almost comfortable. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, like it was earlier. But then at the same time, I've pretty much been at that Hurricane Harbor,
right.
just getting wet the entire time I've kind of been here. Like, I mean, I've been on a few roller coasters, but I'm not really a roller coaster guy. You know what I'm saying? And like, to be honest with you, I've gone over on the old school ones. So I was on the Demon, I did the Viper, and then I did the what's the big white one? The Great American or whatever Eagle? The hell. The what is it?
American Eagle, is it?
There you go. Yeah, the big white one. That's still here.
Okay.
You know, I've been on those ones. I haven't gone on none of the new school ones yet. Some
Okay.
of these new school ones look almost insane. Like, what human being really goes on some of these coasters? I should go on a water ride later on because one of them is actually working. But man, the walk earlier where the Hurricane Harbor is and where the picnic ones that we had were on opposite sides of the park. Oh my God, it was I felt like it was the longest walk ever.
Yeah, man. Well, the reason why I'm asking, Nick, is because, as you know, we have a new sponsor, and man, do they solve the issue that both of us are going to have over the rest of this summer? Well, guys, again, we talked about it last week. I am a sweaty man. Okay, I have a hard time with my sweat glands. We fight on occasion. It's been like this since I was a kid, and now I'm a little bit bigger. I'm a little bit huskier. I got a little bit more meat on my bones, so it's even more of a problem. So again, you know, when you're running around a hot day like it is today, my man Nick's over there at Six Flags, and I can't imagine what it's like right now because for me, man, I'd be dying a slow death over there when it comes to the sweat. So again, that sweaty, sticky feeling is no good, and that's why I'm so glad that we got Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray. If you guys have ever played sports or anything like that, if you've ever gone to Six Flags like Nick and you know, had that sort of surge of sweat, you guys know the feeling. It's gross, the chafing, the itching, the stinking. You guys know what I mean with that. Dudes, you guys know what it's like in the downstairs area. The undercarriage is definitely a must when it comes to the maintenance, and to not have that is such a tough thing. You know, people use baby powder and, you know, all sorts of other thing, and body spray. We talked about that. You know, smells like you're in some sort of a LA Fitness bathroom or something like that. But nothing really does the trick. And then now we finally found that solution. The solution is Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray. It is made to replace all the other halfway solutions on the market. Nux is a moisture absorbing spray that is designed specifically for guys, and especially for our undercarriage. Okay, guys. So it's again, we talked about it. It's a rough situation. It's a little bit awkward to talk about, but you know, this is the sort of reality that we have here. We're talking armpits, clothing, sports pads, athletic equipment. We're talking boxing, UFC gloves, helmets if you're playing football, hockey, whatever it may be. Anything that gets nasty during activity, guys, Nux 3-in-1 refresher spray is where you go. Has no aluminum ingredients, guys. Tested to be safe and effective all over the body, and it comes scented or unscented. So if you guys need to find out more, and I'm telling you guys need to find out more about this, especially with the weather we're about to get this summer, and I know that we've got a lot of active people listening here, so please, guys, do me a favor, check out mynux.com. Again, it's nux KNUCKS.com. Again, that's mynux.com. Again, man, that's I don't envy you right now, Nick, because that seems like an issue, and I'm sure that shower next later on tonight is gonna hit when you get home.
Be like feeling like liquid gold, my friend. Liquid gold.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, Nick, man, let's talk about this London game, man. I saw the dimensions of this damn stadium, and we talked about this off air, and I know we both feel the same about this. So the MLB, in an effort to internationalize their audience, has decided that they want to do some games in London. And I want to say, I don't know what stadium it is. It's not the O2, but I think it's like, do you remember what stadium it was, Nick?
I think it was maybe.
I know it's
London
not the O2.
Stadium,
London
Wembley
Stadium.
Or
yeah, it wasn't the O2 because I know the O2 is too damn big, but what they did is they scaled a soccer field to make it a baseball field. Now, for anybody who knows baseball, it's a very specific field, and the dimensions are very specific. And I think baseball fans who understand how this shit works, you see, like in Oakland Athletics, they've got a lot of foul ground. I mean, notorious for how much foul ground they have. Well, this stadium had 14,000 more square feet of foul ground than the Oakland Athletics Stadium did. I think it was 385 straightaway center, something like 370 something to left field. 12 combined runs by the teams. I didn't get to watch the game, but I read it later, Nick. 12 combined runs by the Yankees and the Red Sox. The Yankees come out on top after holding on to the lead. I don't know what the score was, but I know it was like a combined like damn near 30 runs. So
it was 17-13.
17-13. And what do you think about the experiment in London, Nick?
Well, yeah, no, I did the same thing you did. I was kind of keeping updates on the score, so I wasn't able to watch it. But from what I, gathered and saw, Tanaka just didn't have it today. Yeah. Porcello didn't have it today. Neither guy had it today. But then this is where New York and Boston kind of separate each other, because for the better part of 5 innings, the Red Sox bullpen exactly showed who we thought they were, which is garbage. And the Yankees took full advantage of it. It was 6-0. The next thing you know, it's 15-6. The Yankees in 2 separate innings scored 6 runs. And this is where I think let's start with the fact that they're in London, right, which is absolute nonsense. I feel the same way about the NFL trying to do this international crap. Yeah. The Bucks have to go to London. I know the Glazers own Manchester United.
Yeah, the Bears are going this year too.
Manchester United in London. Let's leave the Bucks in Tampa. I'm not understanding this whole, if they want to watch a football game, you can get DirecTV or you can stream it on your computer like everybody else in the world does. Why are we continuously going overseas? Like all of a sudden, London is this huge sports ally to the United States. It doesn't make sense to me, especially in baseball, which is really American pastime, and Toronto just happens to be in the mix.
Right.
But
it's a money grab, Nick. It's a money grab.
It's a huge money grab. And second on, we couldn't send the Marlins and Rays to go play each other.
You got to send the two of the best teams.
The 2 most prominent franchises in baseball to go show off. So it was crazy. I was losing my mind because the Yankees hadn't played in the last 2 days. They were off Thursday, and then they had the Friday travel date to London. So I was going crazy, but. Yeah, it's like they didn't miss a beat. And again, I'm not sure what exactly Aaron Boone said to the Yankees after they got smoked in that Friday game in Chicago, but the Yankees have been unstoppable.
Yeah.
Even with the starting pitching kind of being ho-hum, dude, once the Yankees get the lead, it's almost over. Yeah. It's like Brian Cashman fleeced the Mariners into giving them Edwin Encarnacion,
right?
And it has paid dividends, because when Stanton did get hurt for the 50th time this year and everybody was healthy, you couldn't pitch to that lineup.
Yeah.
Voit has power. Edwin has power. Giancarlo hit a home run. Judge hit a home run. Gary's MVP. DJ LeMahieu's been playing MVP, and what a pickup by the Yankees on DJ LeMahieu.
Wow, yeah.
Because everyone was like, oh, his numbers are just inflated because he plays at Colorado.
Yeah.
His numbers are still just as damn good now in New York as they were in Colorado.
Yeah, he's been their MVP.
Playing in the American League, which is the more premier league than the National League.
Right.
So the job that they've been doing, the Yankees have been doing this year, is insane. They still need to go out and get another starter. I have a feeling that if Dellin Betances is not healthy a week before the trade deadline, the Yankees are going to need to get another bullpen arm. So I think those are 2 necessities that the Yankees are going to have to do. But the right now, they're running away and hiding from this division.
Yeah.
And one of the big talks about the New York Yankees was this kid Luis Castillo that pitched today against the Cubs. because the Yankees said that they did not want to trade Clinton Frazier for a rental pitcher. They want to trade him to a team for a pitcher that they can have 2 to 4 years control with.
Right.
Well, this kid Luis Castillo, who's only 25 years old, he's under control until 2024. So, but a lot of people say they don't think that the Yankees or that the Reds should trade Luis Castillo because the Reds are kind of on the cusp of being really good.
Yeah.
But I'm not buying that until they're good, because we've been saying this nonsense about the Reds, and they've been borderline bottom feeders of the NS Central for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
So,
no, that's true.
But dude, I can't wait for this game tomorrow to be over, win or lose, so then the guys can come back home. But let me tell you this, if the Yankees lose to the Mets on Tuesday, I'm already calling jet lag.
Yeah, and that's legitimate, man. I mean, I did see the plane that they went over there, and it was lavish, and they were set up real nice, but shit, man, 18 hours of travel is no freaking joke. So, and Mo, what's good, my man? Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for the comment. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, dude, I agree with you. The Yankees, man, it's hard to imagine a scenario where the Rays or the Red Sox right now find a way back from this deficit, because the Yankees have got the type of hitting that I think you've got to look. I think teams now are going to have to look around, especially the Red Sox and even the Rays to a certain extent, and say, man, we got to find a way to compete with this lineup. And whether it be going out and shoring up your pitching staff or getting more bats or something like that, they're going to force the hand of Boston, because I know that Boston came into, or actually we went to the Fenway for a couple of games in Boston. The White Sox did, and we almost took 3 games from them. Okay, so if it wasn't for some surges early, we would have taken the first 2 games, and we ended up taking the 3rd game. So yeah, man, the Yankees, they look scary right now when it comes to that lineup. And I just knew after reading the article yesterday about the dimensions of that place, and just the way that all the quotes that you saw from players were like, this looks like a little league stadium, the way that it's set up. I know that people were worried that there was white seats in the background, and hitters were like, well, how are we going to hit with the white seats in the background? Didn't seem to be too much of a problem. You get 30 combined runs today, so we'll see how the game goes tomorrow. Do they get a day? They get a day off after. They get a day off on Monday, right, Nick?
Right, Monday, and then the Yankees go to Citi Field to take on the Mets.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, man, the baseball right now is starting to sort of the picture's starting to come together for the league right now. You're starting to see who the contenders are in each league. You're starting to see what player. I mean, we talked about this earlier shows, Nick. It's a hard deadline now. July 31st is the last day you can make a trade now. So these trades that we used to see second or third or fourth week of July are now going to come in the next week. And I think Castillo is an interesting one. I know that there's a lot of talk around Bumgarner. I think Minnesota is hell bent on trying to acquire him. Minnesota looks scary, man. I know the White Sox beat him yesterday, but Minnesota looks scary with the way that they're hitting and the pitching staff. I know Michael Pineda today, who's a former Yankee, did pretty well against the White Sox, but man, the league is here's the big thing, Nick, is we're gonna start to see who wants to contend. Okay, who is going to go out? Which organization is saying we've got to go out and get pieces? There's no way that we're going to be, that this is how it is every single year. If you feel like you've got a shot and you're 1 or 2 pieces short, go get those pieces, because you're going to need it. I think it would be foolish for Cincinnati to hold on to Castillo just because they may be good next year. I don't see that, and even to a certain extent, like a lot of people are talking with the White Sox that Alex Colomé, hey, don't trade Colomé. He's under control for another 2 years, and he's one of the best closers in the league, and yada yada yada. And listen, man, if you're a White Sox fan, nobody's expecting to win the World Series this year. I don't think even anyone's expecting to make the playoffs, but because we're in the conversation, I think people tend to lean towards, well, we've got to keep our team around. I would feel that way if we didn't already have Aaron Bummer, who right now is pitching out of his mind and would be the closer if Colomé left. I think Colomé might be a good fit for the Yankees, to be quite honest, Nick. I think he's got the type of pitches that can get guys out and get ground balls late in games. I don't know if he'd be the closer, but he'd be a good bridge guy.
Yeah, he definitely wouldn't be a closer. He definitely would, like you said, be a bridge guy because Zach Britton. I don't understand what's going on with Zach Britton.
Yeah, he's fallen off hard over the last couple of years.
So hard, and it's like this is a guy who went a whole year without blowing a save in his his second to last year in Baltimore, which was I think the last time they made the playoffs. And then he had some kind of crazy streak where he didn't even have like a fly ball out. Like all of his outs were ground balls because of that sinker.
Wow.
But now he's throwing the sinker too low, and then he's in hitters counts, and then when he's trying to throw the sinker to get a strike, it's a flat pitch and he's getting rocked.
Yeah.
So the Yankees they're gonna have to address that, and Colomé could be, a good piece. Once again, that's especially if Dellin Betances is not gonna be 100%. If he can't come back, and the Yankees are not rushing him to come back either. So if by that last week of July, Dellin is like, look, I'll try, but I can't guarantee nothing, then Brian Cashman gotta get on the phone.
Yeah.
And the White Sox might be a team. They might be a team. I'm pretty sure that at some point, maybe the Yankees were thinking about Craig Kimbrell, maybe to bring him in. But at that point, the Cubs had already went out and signed him. So they're going to have to get a bullpen arm. And I'm the same with you about Luis Castillo. Again, I'm not, everyone's talking about how the Central's not going to be the same next year. Top heavy, with Milwaukee maybe falling off. The Cubs got a lot of decisions to make on which contracts they're going to keep and get rid of. Remember, Chris Bryant is going to be a free agent coming up here soon.
Yeah.
He didn't re-sign with the Cubs. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But with Luis Castillo, I think Brian Cashman has a way to trade pieces almost to a point to where he can fleet somebody out of a deal. You traded for the league leading home run guy at Edwin Encarnacion. I know he's older in age, for a 19-year-old pitcher that nobody, even Yankee fans, knew who he was.
Right.
Nobody knows who Juan Then is.
Yeah.
Unless you're that diehard of a baseball fan, nobody knew who Juan Then is.
Yeah.
Okay. So and he's got that way. So if that means you got to trade Clint Frazier to bring in a young 25-year-old kid that has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, or at least somewhere in that area, and his changeup is at 80, and this kid is damn near unhittable, you got to make that deal, because then you're looking at a potential starting rotation of Castillo, a healthy Severino, the Big Maple, Tanaka whenever he's right. You know what I'm saying? And then Domingo Germán when he comes back. You got to forget that Domingo Germán is still, out there, and he was pitching well before he got hurt.
You already said Severino? Severino coming back soon?
Now, the report on Severino is that the lat is at 90%. I was reading CBS Sports, and they're like, oh, it's more bad news. That's not bad news at all. That's actually good news.
He's on track, yeah.
He's on track, right? It may not be as soon as people want, but it's on track. So I've actually been thinking that maybe Severino comes back in September.
Yeah,
almost.
just wait. Why fuck around? Yeah.
You're going to be damn near 8. You're 9 games up on the Red Sox. You could potentially be 8 games up on the Rays. There's no sense in rushing them back. It's not that kind of sense of urgency where each game matters.
Yeah.
You keep winning, doing your thing. Let the offense keep doing its thing. And then, let everything fold out. So it's no rush to really bring him back, especially if you're saying that the lat is at 90%. So that means maybe in the next 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks, he'll start throwing again, see how it responds.
Yeah.
Then maybe by the 3rd week of July, maybe he'll do, some far tossing. And then maybe by the 1st or 2nd week of August, we're talking about Luis Severino throwing off a mound again.
Nice.
And then he's going to have to get a couple of starts in minor leagues if it's still going on by the time he comes back. And then they're going to have to bring him out as I don't know, I don't know what the Yankees are going to do is be rushing him in. Yeah, you want him in there, but I mean, in big time clutch situations like that for a man that hasn't pitched all year,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, and you don't want to throw him in as his first play is in the playoffs. That's common knowledge. You don't want to do that. And to your point on Castillo, man, we saw the Cubs do it with Gleyber Torres, right? These types of prospects are currency for championships, meaning if you want to win a championship, you have to use sometimes your currency. And the currency that you have sometimes in this league is your prospects. And sometimes you're going to lose out on big prospects. Let me ask you, you think the Cubs would take back Torres and give you back the World Series? No, absolutely not. They lost Gleyber Torres. Torres is a great player. I think he's going to be an all-star player and probably one of the best shortstops, second baseman in the league coming up. But when you're talking about winning a World Series championship, I think you've got to give it up. And when it comes to Cincinnati, man, you said it before. I mean, come on. This thought process that Cincinnati is somehow better than we've seen the last 4 or 5 years is silly. They went out and made some pretty decent moves this year. I know they went out and got Yasiel Puig, and they went out and got a couple of other pieces for their rotation.
A couple other guys.
Yeah. They went out and made some decent moves. Are they there yet? No. Come on. And you know what? If you want to be stingy and up your value for him, that's one thing. But if you're going to say, oh, well, we can't trade this guy because we might win next year, no, that's stupid. Can't think like that, especially, like for the White Sox, for example. I know Colomé is probably going to be the only guy that's probably left out there to as a veteran piece to trade. But, when it comes down to it, I think Abreu has come out and said that he wants to stay, and Rick Hahn and other people have talked about how they prefer that he would be a White Sox for life, and I would prefer that as well. I think he shows the type of passion that he would want to stay in town and be there forever as well. There's a certain sort of complacency and almost you almost get too used to the process and just say, well, we're almost there and we're almost there and we're almost there. And if you're not going out and getting value back for your guys, then you're not almost there. And I think right now, again, going back to the AL East, it's gonna be hard to imagine a Yankees fall off that would allow the Red Sox or even the Rays to catch up at this point. I know the Red Sox are notorious second half team, but I just can't see that happening.
Let me say this too, and I'm glad you brought up the AL East because there was actually a report that came out earlier this week when Toronto was in town. Marcus Stroman is from New York, and when they asked him, what he thought of Yankee Stadium, he said, "I'm built for Yankee Stadium."
He did everything but say, "Hey, trade me to the Yankees."
Well, think about it. They traded J. Happ to the Yankees.
That's true.
Didn't miss a beat on that.
Mm-hmm.
So. You're not going to get, let me tell you this, you're not going to get top tier prospects for
Stroman,
what's his name?
Stroman, yeah.
For Marcus Stroman. But you're going to get something, and you're going to appreciate to get something, or you're not going to get nothing for him.
Sure. And he's going to walk, yeah.
If the Yankees are calling, only move that the Yankees would do this offseason or this trade deadline that would drive me nuts is if they trade for Madison Bumgarner. I don't want him on the Yankees. I think he's a bum now. I think he's a crybaby bitch now.
He is.
I mean, this man is sitting crying every time he gives up home runs. Like, dude, you're the one that let the fastball. The hitter did what he was supposed to do. If you don't like it, then don't throw fastballs down the middle of the plate. All of a sudden, Bumgarner, he won the World Series. He got in a couple of injuries, and now all of a sudden that he's healthy. But he's really not the same pitcher he once was. And I know San Francisco sucked, but I've seen good pitchers play on sucky teams. Like, okay, Jacob deGrom won the National League Cy Young and didn't even have a winning record. That's how much the Mets suck, and that's how great he was last year.
Right.
Madison Bumgarner's not on that same level. He's not a guy that's pitching well on a team that sucks. He's a guy that's pitching like complete utter garbage on a team that sucks. And I don't want him. I'm not giving up any prospects for Madison Bumgarner. And it's one dude was like, oh, you want Madison because of what he's done in the playoffs. No, I don't want him for what he's done in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm looking at what he's done now, and I'm not saying that if you bring in Madison Bumgarner, that all of a sudden the Yankees are World Series champions. They're not.
Right. No,
they're not.
No.
They might be ALCS best, but they're not World Series best.
Yeah.
A guy like Castillo, or if the Washington Nationals weren't such idiots, a guys like, Max Scherzer,
yeah.
Those are guys that can put you over the hump.
Yeah.
Maybe even, Stroman could. I'm kind of on the fence. I think he's still ALCS, but it's a guy that wants to pitch in New York for a guy that's from New York.
Yeah.
And I think he would handle the New York media well. That's why I think that's a good second option. But I would look at both. Stroman, see what you can get out of Stroman, and if you're not trading any top tier prospects for Stroman, then start dangling your top tiers to Cincinnati for Castillo, and then you're talking about a potential starting five that could be Severino, Castillo, Stroman. CeCe's retiring.
Happ.
You have J Happ. And then you'll have the Big Maple as well. And you'll still have Tanaka. So you could even almost move J Happ, since he's struggling so much. You could move J Happ down to that role of being the long reliever and get Cessa's bum ass up out of New York, just like they did Jonathan Holder when that man gave up 5 runs the other day and didn't even record it out because he's garbage.
Yeah, I saw that. And did they designate him for assignment yet or no?
They definitely sent him to the Niners. They didn't DFA him, but they definitely sent his bum no pitching ass to the Niners. God, what a bomb, dude. And look, here's the funny thing. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Because remember, I have snapped off on our second show when he gave up that lead against Tampa.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he was pitching well, but then he sucked in Chicago. And my buddy's like, yeah, man, Holder sucks too. I'm like, wait a minute, Holder's been pitching well, so maybe it's just a blimp. He's been pitching like complete crap since then.
Yeah.
Thank God he's gone.
Yeah. And let me say this, Nick. I don't think there's any buy that the Yankees will buy right now that will guarantee them a World Series. They've got the team right now that can win the World Series. They just need a piece or two to help them sort of get over the hump. Obviously, this offense is going to speak for itself. Well, it remains to be seen. I know a lot of people want to talk about, well, it's early in the season and this team looks like a world beater right now, but those hitters, they've got another half a season and da-da-da-da-da. Well, listen, man, I'm a White Sox fan who just watched the Minnesota Twins, and the Minnesota Twins right now are on pace to set, I think, the highest slugging percentage in MLB history. They're on pace to, I think, smash the runs scored before the All-Star break, I want to say. It's hard to imagine right now that, the trends that we're seeing right now are going to dip so far below where they're at later on in the season. And same thing for the Yankees, man. It's almost like a too big to fail type of thing where you've got this team of just studs, and again, there's some question marks in the bullpen. There's some question marks even in the rotation at some point. But when you've got that type of lineup, it changes the way you play the game. And it's going to be hard it is really hard right now for an opposing team to go against the Yankees and expect that their starting pitcher is going to go in deep, that their bullpen is going to be safe, because this team has so much power. And when it comes down to it, the stadium that you guys play in is conducive to that power as well. So we've got something that's very interesting coming with the Yankees. And to a certain extent, man, the league right now is still taking shape, and we'll see what happens before the deadline on the 31st. But it's going to be a lot of moving around for teams, and there's some teams on the cusp there too, even in the NL. I can't hear you, but I can see your face, Nick. So yeah, when it comes down to it, man, the Cubs right now are in an interesting position, Nick. They went out and got Kimbrel. He had you can't expect him to be the guy that he is going to be right away, but they went out and got Kimbrel. They still have some issues right now with pitching, and they also still right now have that issue with this lineup that can sometimes go away, and that's the huge part about the Yankees. I don't think this group of guys has the potential to just go away. And the Cubs, we've seen that before in them. We saw it last year in the playoffs. We saw it a couple of years ago in the playoffs, both against, when it comes down to it, that series against Milwaukee that they had. You're looking at a team that just kind of disappeared with their bats. So I don't see that happening with the Yankees, quite frankly. I think they're too big to fail, and I would be very surprised if they didn't at least make the ALCS.
Well, let me say this, because and another thing is, too, if you remember in both the National League Central game and the wild card game,
yeah.
The Cubs were just trying to hit home runs. They weren't moving anybody. They weren't trying to set anybody up for runs. It was all home run swings, because they only scored 2 runs in 2 games at home with your season on the line.
Yeah.
And so that I see what you're saying about them going away. But you're right about the Yankees, bro. Like, this team, there's something special about these Yankees team. And I think a lot of it maybe had to do with the way that the Red Sox won the World Series. And I think a lot of it also has to do with some of the comments that may have come out of Alex Cora's mouth. Or is it Alex or Joey?
Alex Cora. Yeah, Alex Cora.
Okay. Yeah. Alex, what came out of his mouth afterwards, like, hey, we beat the Yankees to get here, and we scored. What was the one game when they scored like 15 or 17
and
runs?
They're playing New York as they're walking out of there, and that type of shit.
And just the way that it went out, he threw it in their face, and I really think that it left a sour taste in the Yankees' mouth, because they came out really slow out the gate. Losing. They lost 2 or 3 to Baltimore, and they lost 2 or 3 to somebody else that sucks. And now all of a sudden, they have one of the best 5 records in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And we're talking about them maybe potentially trading for a pitcher to put them over the cusp.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, the Yankees they're like stupid crazy right now.
Can you imagine if they didn't have that string of injuries to start the season? I mean, people are forgetting that half the fucking team was on the DL the first 2 months. So that's crazy to think about. Nick, I got to get to this intrinsic marketing ad for us, guys. You guys know Intrinsic Marketing, one of our sponsors, all the services you need under one roof. You started a business because you believe in what you do, so let Intrinsic Marketing bring your product or service to the market. That's what they do best, guys. Intrinsic has the services, tools, and expertise to make it happen, all in one place. That includes web design, social media, copywriting, targeted ads, and much more. Designing, development, and hosting, everything you need to get online. Comprehensive social media management services scaled to fit your needs. Blog posts, articles, sales materials, press releases, and again, much, much more. Guys, do us a favor. Visit intrinsic.chicago.com. Again, Intrinsic, INTRINSIC, Chicago, you know the spelling of that.com. Nick, I'm watching this UFC fight card right now. It's the undercard. I think it's Jared Flash Gordon versus Moret. It's pretty damn good scrap. But yeah, I do want to discuss one thing with you NBA wise before we move completely on. I know that we're getting close here to closing time, but. So again, I'm reading a lot now, and even when we were talking, Nick, you're starting to see a lot of buzz right now about this whole Kawhi and Kevin Durant thing right now. It's starting to become a little bit. Listen, I wouldn't be necessarily worried if I were the Knicks quite yet, but. When it comes down to it, the Knicks have to have a backup plan. And even, listen, man, the Clippers, you better have a backup plan. The Lakers, you better have a backup plan, because when it comes down to it, if the Knicks, for example, do get that Kawhi and Kevin Durant thing, they may be looking at a team next year that can win the East. And we're also talking about, listen, man, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but you might be able to use the D word after that, the dynasty word after that, because you'll have Durant come back the following year. You have RJ a little bit better. You have Mitch Robinson a little bit better. You have Kawhi coming back on a roll. And Kawhi, man, is really catapulting himself to the top of the sort of tier, where we already said, man, this guy's a top 4 or 5 player. Man, this guy's a top 8 or 10 player. Now, man, you better start putting respect on this dude's name and really starting to understand that this guy can change a franchise. So if the Knicks are able, or again, I know it's the Knicks or the Clippers are the only 2 teams that are really rumored because they're the only 2 teams that have that type of space. But if the Knicks or Clippers can pull this, and to a lesser extent the Clippers, Nick, because you're going to have to still get through the West if you're on the Clippers. If you're on the Knicks, you got this conference that's reeling right now, that some teams, man, I mean, you got the Pistons who are looking to go after Derrick Rose. I know Nikola Vucevic is hoping to stay with the Magic, but Jimmy Butler may be heading out. I know Tobias Harris is thinking about possibly moving on from the Sixers. I'm also hearing a lot about Al Horford. That Al Horford, pretty much has a deal in place with a couple of other teams right now, and it's probably going to be out west. So, man, the East is reeling. You got them on their sort of toes, and the Knicks have a chance to do something special here that involves possibly bringing in 2 of the best players on the planet, one of which is not going to be playing next year. So it's interesting to see, man. I would say this: if the rumors are true, and Kemba is heading towards Boston, and Kyrie is heading towards Brooklyn, and D'Angelo Russell now is going to be an unrestricted free agent, probably going to be heading to the Lakers, I think. I think that's probably more realistic for him. And honestly, that's good for the Lakers, man. Let me say this. The Lakers, with D'Angelo Russell and LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Kyle Kuzma, already looks better than it would be if you were to just bring in Kawhi. And I just can't see that scenario happen. What are you thinking right now, Nick? I mean, I know that you're not going to say no to a guy like Kawhi, right? I think that's pretty obvious. But how much of this do you think is what we talked about in previous weeks, which is players feeling obligated to want to be in the free agency process? Remember, where it's like, I've never been to free agency. I want to be courted. I want to know how it feels to be courted. And that's got to be a great feeling, man, walking into a stadium and every fucking person in that whole stadium is waiting on you, and they're there for you, and they put you up on the Jumbotron, and you're going to these meetings and they're talking about throwing money and advertisements and this and that at you. That's a really cool feeling. So how much of this do you think is a lot of these free agents posturing to basically be a part of that process? And how much do you think of that as legitimate, where, guys like Kawhi actually want to go out to New York?
I mean, it's the possibility, but it's all about the sale. I brought up this question earlier because I had read something where the Knicks for a long time, they've been run by Donnie Walsh, and they've been run by Phil Jackson. And James Dolan has had his hands in the mix. But now you have 2 African Americans that are running the Knicks. Scott Pills, one's the general manager, one's the president. So my question was, how much effect does that have on Kawhi and some of these free agents that, it's like you almost don't want to flirt with the color thing, but you can't dismiss it because they might sell something in a way that the Clippers can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, they might sell something or say something to Kevin and say something to Kawhi when they're like, man, I'm really feeling what they're selling. Okay, I'm looking at the Knicks core: Dennis Smith Jr., R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox. As a matter of fact, I was watching on the Knicks Facebook page that Mitchell Robinson and Kevin Knox were just out there just having fun. Apparently they had went to the Toronto Golden State game together and watched that championship game together. And Mitchell Robinson's having fun with the guys, and the locker room is loose. It's not as uptight. You got to remember, I think the one thing that stopped the Knicks from getting a lot of free agents was the turmoil between Phil Jackson and the coaching staff and the players. But now that he's gone, he's now 2 years removed. Okay, you didn't get Zion, but now you got RJ who wants to be in New York. And now you look at this young core. But then you look at the Clippers, and they're not too bad either.
Right.
You know, they got some real good pieces over there either. I mean, too. And now but I'm thinking that maybe the East, competition-wise, might be just a tad bit easier to try and get to where it is you want to go.
Right.
And that's where I'm thinking, if you were thinking between, well, what do I want to go to New York or do I want to go to Brooklyn? Obviously, New York Knicks fans have a lot more heart, in my opinion, than Brooklyn fans. And I think there's more prestige in New York than it is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So, and Ice Cube said it too, you know, if you're trying to build a legacy, you want to win a championship, do you know what your legacy would be like if you won a championship
in New York?
In New York?
Yeah, wow.
Come on, like, I understand what Kawhi did in Toronto was magical. And I'm not trying to diss anything he did, you know, with the people of Canada and Toronto and all that stuff. But that would not hold a candle to if he brought that championship prestige to New York and you just saw nothing but vast improvements. And then when Kevin Durant comes up, now you're talking about that D word potentially. So again, I'm just wondering what the sell job is going to be with the Knicks. You can't save money. So you can't go out there and be like, oh, yeah, well, I can offer you 4 years, $168 million to both guys. It's like, okay, that's cool and all.
Right.
But at the same time, let's talk about New York and let's bring some fans. Let's walk amongst the fans and let me show you what it'd be like. Could you imagine if Scott Perry and Steve Mills walked down the street with Kawhi and KD? They get mugged.
Wow, yeah. And we talked about this with the Clippers.
So crazy. The fans would be so crazy to think that those guys would come in there. They'd be like, oh, man, please come. So there's like that fandom in New York that you're not going to get anywhere else. That includes the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah. And we also talked about that outside-the-box approach with the Clippers, too, where it's like they're not just going to go out and say, we'll offer you a max contract. Listen, dude, there's 5 other teams that can do that for me right now. Tell me exactly what I'm going to be able to do here, what the benefits of being here is, and that's a really big portion. I'm going to tell you this, Nick, man. I think we're going to be disappointed with the movement of a lot of these free agents. I think we already know Klay's probably going to be set in Golden State. I quite frankly think that it's going to be really, really, really hard to convince Kawhi to leave Toronto. I think they've got a great thing going there. They're going to be able to bring back basically the whole freaking team and try and run it back with the relationship. Listen, we don't know what the relationship is right now between KD and the Warriors. A lot of people are saying that KD isn't too happy with the Warriors right now, that he's a little bit peeved by them, that the whole, I did read something from, I forget, his name escapes me, he's an ESPN guy. He was saying that Kevin Durant looked at that press conference of Bob Myers crying and kind of like chuckled or may have said something along the lines of like, yeah, fuck you or something like that, because
Windhorse?
No, not Windhorse. He's Amin. I don't know his last name. No, his name is Amin. He's like I want to say he's a Sudani American guy. Something El Amin. I don't know what his exact name is. I'll look that up after. Right. But yeah, no, he said something about how Kevin Durant sort of reportedly looked at that and said, yeah, fuck that guy, because he's the one who convinced me to come back in and yada, yada, yada. I will say this, Nick. Derrick Rose and the Pistons would like to agree on a 2-year deal. That's probably good for him. There's another thing that's saying Jimmy Butler will meet with the Heat on Sunday and possibly, look at something with the Heat. I know that they have, they've got a lot. They need to figure out some cap flexibility or some money flexibility, but they'll figure it out. I think it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where Kevin Durant is going to go to a team like, let's say, for example, the Knicks, right? If he goes to the Knicks and he doesn't bring in, because the Knicks officially have 2 max slots available, right? Okay, so if they've got 2 slots available, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where they bring in a second guy other than Kawhi and are able to be good right away. I think they would be really, really smart to go out, sign Kevin Durant, and then sign 2 other guys. Like you said, Julius Randle maybe, JJ Redick maybe. Go out and find a couple of other pieces and try and put together a team for next year, man. I mean, people are really sleeping on the openness of the East right now. And as a Bulls fan, I gotta be nothing but encouraged about the plan for the East right now, which is it's wide open. Teams are vulnerable right now, and we saw it with Toronto last year, man. Anything can happen. Get yourself to the dance and anything can happen. So, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where, let's say Durant goes to, New York, and then they decide, you know what, we'll bring in, I don't even know who, let's say they say, hey, we'll bring in Tobias Harris. Okay, that's not a bad piece. You guys need a 4, whatever it may be. I don't think he would get the max. I highly doubt he'd get the max. But you almost are better off spreading that wealth, getting Julius Randle, getting JJ Redick. I know that there's a couple of other, even a guy like Kelly Oubre or some of these other glue guys that are sort of positionless. I know the game is going towards a more positionless type of basketball. The Knicks have a chance to do something special. So let's be honest here. So does Brooklyn, man. Brooklyn, if they're able to convince, let's say for example, they're able to convince KD, man. I mean, that's a special thing. So people are sleeping on the openness of the East right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Like I said, man, dude, I don't know why everyone's so hard pressed, to want to go to the West and whatnot. And, with all the hard competition out there, especially, after, Conley gets traded to the Utah Jazz, they're much better. That it's going to be better next year. The Blazers are going to be better. Houston's kind of in turmoil, but for what it's worth, they're going to be good. So there's so much competition out there that I'm with you. If Kawhi leaves Toronto, man, Toronto just becomes another average team. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're the world champs, but they're just now another team. Milwaukee, have they learned anything from the Eastern Conference loss? We saw the guy that I'm leery about in Milwaukee is Budenholzer, because we saw him do this in Atlanta, where Atlanta once upon a time had the best record in the NBA. They got swept by LeBron and the Cavs, and they were never good after that.
No.
So we have to see what steps Milwaukee takes. So they're a question mark. Yeah. So when you have a team like you said, like the Knicks and the Nets, who have a lot of cap space availability to go out there and sign guys and make their teams better. Like you said, the openness of the East is going to be very intriguing.
Yeah, and to that point, man, I think next week's show should be a banger, because we're going to start to see a lot of stuff happening, and the picture is going to become a little bit more clear, and me and you are going to be able to break down a little bit more about the second tier of free agents, man, because the second tier of free agents is pretty damn good. I had a pretty nice list, and oh my God, Eric Anders just absolutely destroyed. And this guy he's writhing on the ground right now. I'm sorry, Nick. I'm watching Eric Anders, former Alabama football player turned to UFC fighter, absolutely just destroyed his opponent with a left hook, and the guy is writhing on the ground right now. Not looking good. Nick, I want to talk a little UFC with you before we go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. So UFC, man, there's a card today, like we talked about, and the main card is about to start. We already talked about how Francis Ngannou is going to be facing Junior Dos Santos. That's going to be an interesting one. And this replay is nuts. Eric Anders just absolutely destroyed this guy Moreira. But yeah, we've got Ngannou and Dos Santos, Juicio Formiga and Joseph Benavidez. Damian Maia is going to be fighting tonight against Rocco Martin. That's another pretty damn good fight. Vince from Hell Pichel is going to be fighting Daryl Roberts. Drew Dober and Reyes, pretty damn good card in the top card. But the real interesting thing about right now the UFC, Nick, is we've got a couple of really good cards coming up in a couple of weeks. July is a big is a pretty big month for the UFC. They're gonna we're gonna start to see a lot of things start to come into play. We've got UFC John Jones dos Santos. That's coming up next week. That's going to be an amazing fight for us to talk about. Maybe next week. I don't know. We'll talk about this off air, Nick. But that one's starting at around 5 next week or something like that. So let's line that up so we can watch this card, because that card next week is going to be nuts. We're talking already with John Jones and Thiago Marreta Santos. That's going to be Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, Jorge Masvidal, my favorite fighter in the UFC, against Ben Askren, Jan Blachowicz versus Luke Rockhold, Michael Chiesa versus Diego Sanchez. That's going to be a sick card, man. So we're going to start to see what, the next steps for John Jones. I mean, honestly, man, there's not really much for John Jones to do in that division, okay? He's already, the UFC was so happy about Mahete winning his last fight because they really wanted to see him fight John Jones. And if John Jones dismantles him like I think he's going to dismantle him, what else do you have left for the guy? What do you want him to do? He's already proven to you that he's swept through the division over the last 10 years almost, and now you're going to be looking at hopefully another DC rematch. I would love to see DC, and John Jones one more time, because honestly, Nick, if you're John Jones, you probably have 5 fights left in you, man. I'm not sure you've got a ton more fights left in you. As some breaking news came in really quick, Nick, on NHL. I'll just drop this on you really quick, as Phil Kessel just got traded from the Pittsburgh Penguins over to Arizona. Looks like for went with a couple of picks over to Arizona. So Phil Kessel just got traded to the Coyotes.
That's kind of surprising too, because there was a lot of speculation that Phil Kessel wasn't going to waive his no-trade clause. I think he had a full no-trade clause with Pittsburgh, and they really wanted to move him to free up some space. Yeah. And, before we get real deep into the UFC and what's coming up, NHL free agency more or less has started. Yeah. And, the hot guys right now, it seems like there might be some kind of mutual interest between the Rangers and Panarin.
What about Bobrovsky as well, right? Bobrovsky and Panarin are possibly looking at the Rangers, right?
Well, I think Bobrovsky is looking at Carolina, because they need a goalie so bad. Yeah. Plus, what's his name in not Carolina, Florida. Because it's another team, actually it's both, because Carolina needs a goalie.
Carolina does need a goalie, yeah.
And so does Florida now that Luongo's
retired. Yeah. That's a good point. And Quenneville, and that's another thing, Quenneville has a sort of a connection to Bobrovsky as well, and Quenneville's a coach over in Florida, so that's a good point. Yeah. So what do you think the Rangers' chances are right now with Panarin? Because obviously he's the hot guy right now. I saw that they had brought him in for a meeting. I saw they put him on the Jumbotron with the Rangers jersey. So what are you thinking about that right now?
Well, the joke on that is apparently they put
as
Panarin
a lefty, right?
As a lefty, a righty. I guess he's a lefty.
Yeah.
I don't think Panarin cares about that.
Who cares? Yeah, they just flipped the image. Who cares? Yeah.
Exactly. I think I think at the end of the day, I really think that the meeting went well, and it sounds like that they offered him a 7-year, $11.5 million contract, but all of the signs point that the Rangers aren't going to, do any overbidding.
You're saying 11.5 a year, right?
What's up?
You're saying 7 years, 11.5 per year?
Yep.
Wow, that's a major deal.
It's a major deal, and also let's also not forget that the Rangers still need to re-sign Jacob Trouba that they just got from help me out. From Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, yeah.
So the Rangers are kind of speeding up the rebuilding process of what they were doing. But I guess the ties between John Davidson and Panarin are starting to tie up a little bit. Now, he's still got I think he's going to go talk to the Islanders. I there was another team that I think the Blackhawks decided to drop out of the sweepstakes. They're not in it. I read.
Yeah. They went ahead and traded for a couple of defensemen, which I was really happy about, and they got some good defensemen. But yeah, they're out of the race now. They don't have enough money for it.
Right. So we're gonna see what New York does, but this will be a huge move for them, especially a huge move on the horizon, because a lot of the young kids, especially a lot of the Russian kids that they got, the goalie Igor Shesterkin has been great in rookie camp. Kako snapped off the other day in rookie camp, and then this kid Ivan Khrushchev. Christoph, so I forget how to pronounce the last name.
Yeah,
he's been killing it. So the Rangers got the kids. Now, can David Quinn put it all together? Is going to be the question.
And man, Panarin's a big time player, man. I mean, this guy has flew under the radar. Starting off in Columbus, Columbus trades him over to the White Sox, to the Blackhawks in the trade for Brandon Saad, and then the Blackhawks were kind of had their hands tied because they knew they weren't going to be able to keep the guy. They wouldn't have the money to give him that type of deal when you're talking about keeping Kane and keeping Taves and keeping Seabrook and keeping Keith. So yeah, no, man, Panarin is a big time player, dude. This guy is no joke. He's one of the best scorers in the league, has some of the best handles in the league. And as far as offensive output is concerned, this guy can put up a boatload of points by himself. And that's that's a big time move if the Rangers do that. And honestly, man, you got to start. The NHL is sort of becoming a league where it's tough to justify a full rebuild. A lot of teams aren't doing that anymore. We're starting to see, man. Listen, you and me were watching back in the day when the Coyotes were trying their best for 5 straight years to kind of try this rebuild, and all it really resulted in is them trading away a bunch of their former first round picks. And now after trying to win, you see they trade for a guy like Phil Kessel. So listen, man, there's no such thing as a rebuild in hockey for some reason. You can't. It's not as easily accomplished. Like, we talk about rebuild in the NBA because teams go into NBA hell, right? Where you're like not good enough to be a championship team, not bad enough to not make the playoffs or be in the shot for the number 1 pick. So there's a big contrast between that and the NHL, where, man, we weren't talking about the Blues very much last offseason, Nick. I mean, the Blues weren't exactly guys that you were like, yeah, this team's going to come in and win and go on a tear after January and win the cup. Not a lot of people were thinking like that, and then especially after they're one of the worst teams in the league for the first 3 months. So there's no such thing as a full rebuild, and anytime you're a team like the Rangers, you have enough talent to obviously stay afloat, but then you bring in a guy like Panarin, and that could change things really quickly.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. You're right, and I think the Rangers' mind really got changed once they got the number 2 overall pick.
Right.
And I think that if they do land Panarin, you'll see Chris Kreider go. I think they're going to cut ties with him. Potentially maybe trade him. Boston seems to be the preferred destination because he went to BC. We heard Tommy say last week.
I'm sure Tommy would love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll probably see that deal. But yeah, if the Rangers can get Panarin, it'll be a really big move for New York.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, last 15 minutes here, my man. I do just want to talk a little bit about some UFC before we jet out of here. So again, we talked about next week. I think I'll wait until we're both in the studio so that we can talk a little bit more in depth about this UFC 239, because that's going to be a freaking amazing card. We might have to spend like half the show next week on that. But we've got Ngannou and Dos Santos tonight. Give me your thoughts and your pick on that specific fight, Dos Santos versus Ngannou, which is the main fight tonight on that fight night.
Yeah, I'm like I said earlier, my biggest thing is, what does the cardio for Ngannou look like? That's the big thing for me. If his cardio has not improved, Dos Santos is going to win this fight, and he'll win it somewhere in the second or the third. The thing with Dos Santos is he's going to have to stay away from the power. We all know that Dos Santos' stand-up game is one of the better in the business in the heavyweight division. So he's not afraid to go toe-to-toe. Ngannou might be the wrong person to go toe-to-toe with.
Right.
But if you can get him winded, and I think that if he notices that he, as in Dos Santos, notices that I think it's really going to put a lot of pressure on Ngannou.
Yeah.
And so it's all about the cardio. That's the only way I can see Francis even hanging with Junior.
Yeah.
And it's his cardio. If it goes down, then Francis is not going to win this fight. So
yeah.
if he can show some cardio, then it would be Francis. But I mean, we haven't seen that in the last couple of fights, to be honest with you, and I don't think anything's going to change. So I would almost think that Dos Santos would probably win by technical knockout, maybe in the third round.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's one thing about that. Ngannou has one punch power, and Dos Santos has the combo power, right? That Dos Santos is not going to be able to knock you out with one shot, and Ngannou can knock you out with one shot. So that is the real big thing is Dos Santos. The good thing about this guy is this guy's savvy. He's been in this freaking game for a long time. And I know a lot of people like to give shit to older fighters and, oh, man, these guys, their head isn't the same. I will say this, man. Dos Santos' chin is not necessarily what it was, but he's known for having a chin, right? So it's going to be an even better matchup just for that fact alone, because we're going to be looking at two guys who have varying styles. We've got a guy in Dos Santos who's going to try and wear you down, and you've got a guy in Ngannou who's going to try and knock your fucking head off. So so that's the huge part for me. Listen, man, Francis right now 13-3 in a pretty he's really new to fighting. And people forget that about Francis is this guy came from Cameroon, moved over to, I believe, France, if I'm not mistaken, and he's new to this game. And Dos Santos isn't, okay? We've seen Dos Santos beat some of the best heavyweight and light heavyweight fighters in the world constantly for the last decade. This guy has, tied for the most in knockouts in UFC history, most UFC knockdowns in heavyweight history, third most wins in UFC heavyweight history. His only UFC losses are to all champions: Cain Velasquez, Stipe Miocic, and Alistair Overeem in Strikeforce. Those are the only people he's ever lost to as heavyweights. So we've got an interesting fight tonight, Nick. I'm really, like I said, I'm really hoping I can make it home in time to watch this whole thing, because when it comes down to it, Francis is going to be able to find his range. But I don't know if you saw this, but Dos Santos, his last fight was actually against Tai Tuivasa, who we actually talked about a couple of weeks ago. He's the one who fought Blagoy Ivanov, and they were the heavyweights in that card, which was the Marlon Moraes card. And he beat the brakes off. And he beat the brakes off of Tai Tuivasa to the point where, like, Tai Tuivasa was literally in full mount and was trying to fight from the bottom, and it was sad. I personally, for some reason, have a feeling about Francis. I think Francis, man, this guy has the type of power where all he has to do is find his range, get out of that mental prison that he's put himself in after that Stipe fight. And after... Listen, Nick, a lot of people were giving this guy shit about if he even wants to fight anymore after the Derek Lewis fight, because both of those guys looked uninterested in that fight. Now, we did end up finding out that Derek Lewis has some serious back problems that might have him retire after that fight. Ngannou came in hurt as well. And his ego was hurt a little bit as well from that Stipe fight. So I'm going to go ahead and say second round knockout for Ngannou. I just personally think right now the the type of disparity in between the power is so scary for me. And then we've got Joseph Benavidez versus Jussier Formiga. These guys are, I know Benavidez is a vet in the flyweight division. I've got Formiga there, and then Damian Maia is going to be fighting again tonight against Rocco Martin. So that should be an interesting fight as well. So Nick, what's the plan, man? Are you going to go back in there and then ride a couple coasters? What's going on?
Oh, did I? Oh, I thought I had muted. I was doing a good job.
No, you're good.
What you call it? I don't have no idea. Yeah, I probably am gonna go get a couple coasters. Look, dude, I'm not gonna front. It's been a long day. I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning.
My God.
We had to be at the bus station at 7:30, and as usual, I was late. But that's because my niece out of nowhere, can you take me to Starbucks? And her and all her friends gotta go to Starbucks, and then I'm in the peak of this heat, so I felt like I lost some weight, but then I gained it back when I went to the Picnic Grove. So it's been a pretty fun day. Like I said, I haven't been to Great America in over 16 years. I used to work here when I was 20.
Oh, really?
And so yeah, dude. And I'm talking about this place has changed. The place that I used to work at across from the Demon used to be called a Great American Hot Dog. That place doesn't even exist anymore.
Let me ask you, Nick, really quick. Let me ask you, what are the changes in prices since you've worked there to now?
Oh, they're insane. I'm right now looking at bottles that I think they're selling for almost $25, and they're talking about free refills. I think Great America has made. I know, dude, it is insane. Like Great America now is starting to do a lot of these these deals now.
Yeah.
Where like you can get like a lunch, dinner, and snack combo for like $35, which actually is not too bad, considering that my mom just paid for a burger, fries, and a drink, and she said it cost almost $24.
Jeez.
Like, don't get me wrong, I'm hungry, but I'm not. I'm finna spend $24 for a great hamburger. Hell no.
Hell no.
That's not happening. So yeah, now dude, the prices here are gone insane, but that's also because they didn't put every new roller coaster you can see fit with a brand new water park that is absolutely state of the art. So I gotta give them props on that. But man, dude, I could not bring my family here. If I had a family, I couldn't bring them here unless I was making like millions of dollars.
You better have that black card ready.
Oh, and I still would probably be like, no, we're going to eat at the Burger King that still exists across the street from Great America.
Yeah. Hey, so for the time being right now, I know that we're thinking about doing a little bit of an NFL thing coming up soon, but I do want to talk just for a couple minutes here, a little NFL with you because, man, training camp is creeping up around the corner. Yes. You've already got mini camps going on, rookie camps going on. So right now the early signs is a lot of the. So there's going to be a couple of changes, I believe, to some rules. Oh, and by the way, Nick, did you see that the NBA is going to be adding a coaches challenge next year?
Yes, and I don't like it, dude. It's prolonging the game.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we keep trying to take the human element out of the game. It's like it's no longer there. And now, I mean, it's bad enough you're calling timeouts when you're down 5 with 5 seconds left.
Right.
And then it's bad enough that you're fouling people when you're down 5 with 5 seconds left.
Right.
Now we're going to let coaches challenge throughout the game. Oh, my God. The NBA games are only supposed to be 2.5 hours. Will almost borderline be 3:15.
Yeah,
that's
and the shittiest part about the rule is it's not even really a challenge. The coach is forced to call a timeout, and then if you win the challenge, you keep your timeout, and if you lose the challenge, you lose your timeout. So either way, we're slowing down the game. Then you're slowing down the game for the timeout. You're slowing down the game for the actual review. Now they're saying they're also adding in there that, and they're going to test this they're going to test a couple things during the summer league. This is something that we can talk about in another show as well. But they're going to test out basically having a ref over, I want to say it's Secaucus. I don't know where their main ref is. I think it's in New York. But basically having a remote referee being able to stop the game and call either basically a review or something along those lines, basically having an outside force. And man, all that really does is create more complication and more of a question. And listen, man, if you guys want to do anything, let's make these rules a little bit more clear. I know that they talked about this year, they're going to test in the summer league this thing about a transition foul. I don't know if that's exactly. Meaning, right. if a team is about to have a fast break, but it's not technically a clear path, but they're about to have a fast break and you foul them, you give the opposing team rather a free throw and the ball back. They're going to try that out during the summer league. I don't know how many times they're going to be able to try that out. They also are going to try one of these microchipped basketballs. I can't see why they would want to do that necessarily. I don't get like what you're going to be able to get from having a chip in the basketball, but they're going to try those out during the summer. We're looking at a transitionary phase for sports, Nick, because the CBA is going to be a big part of the NFL talks next offseason, and one of the big things is they want to really like overhaul the ref system, the penalty system, and sort of have this be a little bit newer of a game. So we'll see how that goes. I personally don't like either of the changes that the NBA is making.
Me either.
All right, my man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, my man, Nick. I know.
Don't forget.
Bear Cave.
I got the Facebook page up. Yep. Facebook.com/the-Bear Cave. That's how they put it. That's not how I put it.
No worries.
So, yeah, dude. So check that out. Go ahead, like it. I was gonna do a show Wednesday because I got faster internet coming in, so I could do some things. But apparently, I have to close the restaurant on Wednesday, so okay. I'm gonna push it back to Tuesday. I'm gonna try and get Xfinity to come out on Tuesday, so then I can do all the little stuff that I want to do with the show.
Cool.
And we'll keep it on Tuesday. So
hey guys, listen.
For that.
Yeah, listen, guys.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, do us a favor, guys. Go out. If you're a fan of the show, then you're a fan of Nick. Please go out and I shared it on my page earlier. We'll make sure to share it from the Mack and Black page. Please like and subscribe to the Bear Cave. Check these out. I'm telling you, these shows are entertainment, man. I love watching when I get a chance on Tuesdays. And it's gonna be great. And again, I'm hoping one day I can figure out a way to call in my Monday through Friday. You know, I'm working the corporate gig and that. No, man, it's tough. So. Hey, Nick, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you again for another. Yeah, thank you for another show. And thanks for another week. Next week, I'm telling you guys, is going to be a big one. You're going to want to watch next week. We're going to take calls. We're going to be doing a bunch of different stuff. We're going to find a little bit more way to be a little bit more interactive with, with things sort of slowing down on the sports front. So we'll figure a way out. But again, guys, Mack and Black, another one in the books. Thanks again. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace.